There's a moment in every exhausted soul's life that rarely makes a sound. It doesn't happen during chaos, or at the peak of pain, or in the middle of an argument. It happens later quietly, privately, when the world finally goes still. Maybe you sit down on the edge of your bed. Maybe it's a bus seat. Maybe it's the cold tile of a bathroom floor at 2 a.m. The location never matters. What matters is the feeling that's subtle, collapsing inward, like a bridge finally carrying 1 pound more than it was ever built to hold. And what's strange is that nothing dramatic happens. No shouting. No tears. No cinematic breakdown. Just a soft fold, as if something inside you whispers, almost apologetically, "I can't hold all of this anymore." People who haven't lived through too much will miss it entirely. But those who have, they recognize this moment instantly. Because collapse, for them, has never been loud. It has never been explosive. It has always been silent, controlled, almost graceful, like the mind trying to protect itself from shattering. It is the body's quiet plea for relief. The nervous system finally lowering its shoulders after years of bracing, the heart finally admitting that it's tired of being strong in the dark. And yet, buried inside that moment is a question most people never ask. Why does the collapse of someone who has carried too much look so quiet, so invisible, yet so devastatingly heavy? That's where this story begins. People often look at someone who has been through too much and say, "You're so calm. Nothing rattles you." But what they're seeing isn't calm at all. It's quiet numbness, the mind's emergency system running in the background long after the crisis is over. When the nervous system is overwhelmed for too long, it doesn't explode, it shuts down. It narrows emotional bandwidth to the bare minimum, the same way a computer goes into low power mode to keep from overheating. You don't stop feeling because you're enlightened. You stop feeling because your mind's capacity has been exceeded. This is why the world feels muted, why joy feels distant, why the things that should upset you barely make a ripple. Your brain isn't relaxed, it's protecting you from emotional overload by turning the volume down on everything. And in this state, people often mistake you for being centered, wise, unbothered. But peace is an active presence. Numbness is an absence. Peace allows you to feel safely. Numbness keeps you from feeling at all. So if you've ever wondered why your reactions seem delayed, quiet, or strangely flat, it's not a personality flaw. It's your nervous system saying, "Let me hold back your feelings until I'm sure it's safe to release them." Calm is chosen. Numbness is survival. There's a certain kind of maturity people admire: the steady voice, the thoughtful pauses, the calm way someone explains their pain without bitterness. But what most never see is how that maturity was created, not grown. Some people develop wisdom the natural way, through guidance, safety, and time. Others develop it because life gave them no soft places to land. When you grow up navigating emotional chaos, instability, or unpredictable people, you don't mature, you adapt. And adaptation has a different cost. You learn to monitor everyone's mood before you understand your own. You learn to comfort adults when you're still a child. You learn to translate silence, tension, slammed doors, shifting tones long before you learn multiplication tables. While other kids are learning bike tricks, you're learning emotional survival. So yes, you become wise. You become perceptive. You become the one everyone turns to because you get it. But the truth is harsher. That wisdom wasn't earned, it was extracted, taken from moments that should have been gentle, forced out of you long before you had the strength to carry it. And this is why people who seem grounded often carry an invisible ache. They didn't choose to grow up fast. Life pushed them into adulthood and closed the door behind them. Their maturity is real, but so is the grief beneath it. The grief of someone who learned everything too early and lost too many pieces of childhood along the way. Long before most people learn who they are, Some children learn something else first: how to stay safe, not because danger was constant, but because unpredictability was. And unpredictability trains the brain in ways no classroom ever could. When someone grows up in an environment where emotions shift suddenly, where silence can mean trouble, or where caregivers are inconsistent, the nervous system adapts by becoming hyper-aware, not curious, alert. Neurologically, here's what happens explained simply. The amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes overactive. It fires not only at real threats, but at possible ones, imagined ones, remembered ones. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for calm reasoning, has to work overtime and eventually tires. The body stays in anticipatory mode, scanning micro-expressions, tone changes, energy shifts in a room. This is why so many survivors of emotional overload notice everything, too much of everything. Why they replay conversations trying to decode hidden meanings. Why they feel a room's tension before anyone else realizes something is wrong. Why a slight change in someone's voice can send their heart into quiet alarm. To outsiders, it looks like intuition. To psychologists, it's hypervigilance. To the person living it, it's simply the way their brain learned to survive. And the most tender truth is this: the very skills that kept them safe back then, reading danger, anticipating conflict, bracing for impact, now activate even in moments that are safe. They know how to sense storms, even in sunny weather. And yet, none of this makes them broken. It makes them trained by life, by necessity, by circumstances they never chose. Their brain didn't become too sensitive. It became too prepared. A survival masterpiece built under pressure, still trying to figure out how to live in a world where the threat is no longer real. People who have been through too much carry a set of skills they never asked for. A silent curriculum life taught them long before they knew it had a name. Not the kind of skills you list on a resume, but the kind that shape how you move through every room you enter. They know how to read silence. Not just the absence of words, but the texture of it. Whether it's heavy, disappointed, irritated, or simply tired, they sense changes in atmosphere the way others sense changes in weather. A subtle drop in tone, a shift in posture, a breath held too long. Most people walk into a room and see furniture. Survivors walk in and see emotional temperature. They know how to spot tension before a single word is spoken. They know when someone is pretending to be okay. They know when a conversation is about to tilt into conflict. They know when kindness is real and when it's performative. And perhaps the most invisible skill of all, they know how to shrink themselves in the exact moments when attention feels dangerous. How to make their presence lighter, softer, quieter. A reflex born from years of learning that being too visible can come with consequences. None of these skills feel special to them. To them, it's simply survival muscle memory. The emotional reflexes of someone who learned to keep the peace, sense danger early, and protect their own heart without making a sound. These are not personality traits. They are adaptations, proof of how profoundly life shapes a person, even when no one else notices. Love is supposed to feel warm, grounding, expansive. But for people who have carried too much for too long, love often feels like a risk, a beautiful one, but still a risk. Not because they don't want closeness, but because closeness has historically come with consequences. When your early experiences taught you that connection can be unpredictable, your nervous system doesn't relax when someone gets close, it braces. Some develop avoidant patterns. They care deeply, but distance feels safer. They pull back not out of disinterest, but out of self-preservation. Love becomes something they feel intensely but express cautiously. Others develop anxious patterns. Their heart senses danger even when love is steady. A delayed text, a softer tone, a changed rhythm, all can feel like abandonment approaching. Not because the partner is unsafe, but because the nervous system has memorized instability. And some carry disorganized attachment, a mix of longing and fear. They crave intimacy, yet flinch when they receive it. They want to be held, but worry that the moment they relax, something will break. To them, love is not a simple emotion. It is a psychological contradiction. I want this, but I don't know how to feel safe inside it. This is why they overthink the good moments. Why they rehearse painful outcomes before anything goes wrong. Why they apologize too quickly, forgive too easily, and doubt their worth even when someone chooses them wholeheartedly. They aren't afraid of love itself. They're afraid of losing themselves inside it. Afraid that history will repeat, that closeness will cost them more than they can afford to give. Love isn't the danger. The past is. Emotional exhaustion doesn't announce itself. There's no dramatic collapse, no scene, no warning. It shows up quietly in the slow fade that almost no one notices. At first, you're still present. You still smile, still respond, still show up, but something begins to dim inside you. Your laughter becomes softer, your words shorter, your presence lighter, as if you're trying not to take up too much space. You don't withdraw all at once. You drift gently, silently. Not because you don't care, but because caring has become heavy. Even simple conversations feel like effort. Even small decisions feel like weight. Rest doesn't fix it, sleep doesn't touch it, and distractions only mute it for a moment. To others, it looks like you're just busy or quiet lately. But beneath the surface, your mind is carrying things it has never put down. The emotional labor of years staying strong, holding peace, reading rooms, tending to others while neglecting yourself. So you fade in the only way someone who has been strong for too long knows how. Slowly, discreetly, without alarming anyone. And when someone asks if you're okay, you say, "I'm fine." Not because it's true, but because explaining the exhaustion would require energy you no longer have. Emotional exhaustion isn't the breaking point. It's the distance you create to survive until you can feel again. There is a kind of grief that rarely gets acknowledged. Not the grief of losing someone, but the grief of losing yourself. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly, over years of surviving. People who have been through too much often carry this invisible mourning. They grieve the version of themselves who trusted easily, the version who laughed without checking the room first, the version who didn't rehearse conversations, who didn't anticipate danger, who didn't analyze every silence as a warning. They grieve the self that felt light, the self that didn't worry about being too much or not enough, the self that moved through the world without tightening their chest at every uncertainty. And yet, this grief almost never gets spoken aloud. How do you explain that you miss a version of yourself you barely remember? How do you tell someone that you're homesick for a place that existed only inside your own mind? A childhood you didn't fully get to live, a softness you didn't get to keep, a freedom you learned about too late? This grief doesn't break you. It shapes you. It makes you quieter, more observant, more intentional. It turns you into someone who cherishes peace because you know the cost of chaos, someone who values safe people because unsafe ones taught you how much it hurts. And here is the most human truth of all. Healing isn't just about becoming someone new. It is also about grieving the selves you had to leave behind. The selves who protected you, even when the world didn't. You don't just heal forward, you heal backward. 2. Honoring every version of you that carried the weight, so that the current you could finally breathe. Healing doesn't begin with forcing yourself to be stronger. It begins with understanding that your brain has been in survival mode for far longer than it was ever meant to be. Survival mode is brilliant. It protects you, sharpens you, prepares you, but it is not meant to be a permanent home. Healing is the process of teaching your nervous system that it no longer has to brace for impact every day. The first step is awareness, not judgment, not blame, just noticing. Noticing when your chest tightens after a harmless text, noticing when you rehearse outcomes that haven't happened, noticing when your body reacts before your mind understands why. Awareness turns unconscious survival patterns into something you can gently work with. The second step is regulation, learning to calm the survival brain through the body, not the mind. Because the mind can understand safety long before the nervous system believes it. This is where grounding, slow breathing, somatic exercises, walking, stretching, and even placing a hand on your chest become powerful tools. Regulation is not relaxing, it's teaching your body to return from the edge. The third step is reparenting, giving yourself the safety, reassurance, and emotional permission you never consistently received. Telling yourself, you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to have needs. You're allowed to feel without earning it. Reparenting rewires the belief that you must be strong to be loved. The fourth step is building healthy connections slowly, intentionally, with people who feel safe rather than familiar. Your survival brain learned relationships through threat and instability. Healing teaches it to experience relationships through consistency and care. It's not about trusting instantly. It's about learning that trust can be gradual. And the most hopeful truth is this: your brain is not stuck. Neuroplasticity means it can adapt again, this time not for survival, but for peace. Not to brace, but to breathe. Not to endure, but to finally live. There comes a moment quiet, almost unremarkable, when you begin to realize that everything you survived has shaped you into someone with uncommon depth. Not because your life was gentle, but because you learned to navigate storms that would have broken others. And without even noticing, you became something rare. A lighthouse. A lighthouse doesn't shine because it is perfect. It shines because it remembers the darkness. It knows what it's like to feel lost, overwhelmed, unsure of the next step, and that memory becomes its guidance. People who have been through too much often become that steady presence for others, the calm voice, the patient listener, the person who understands without needing every detail. Your survival became insight. Your pain became compassion. Your reflection became wisdom. And now, you are learning something even more powerful: that your life no longer has to be about enduring. It can be about creating gentleness, creating connection, creating a future softer than your past. If this spoke to you, if you felt seen, understood, or less alone while listening, I'd love for you to stay. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapter, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the light someone else has been searching for.